Well, I went and did it. I made some platinum prints. Hey, welcome to another video. Recently, I made a video about how I once printed in platinum. And I did it the hard way, where I was using 35mm negatives and had to make a positive and then make another negative, and it was just a long process to get it right, and then you had to mix your chemicals, and if your chemicals weren't right, so it was difficult. It was a long process, it's an expensive process, and you might want to go back and check out that other video if you haven't seen it. Now with the digital age, it's made it easier. I can't necessarily say easy, but it has made it easier to do platinum printing. So in this video, it might end up being a long one, I don't know. But I was asked by a couple of people to show them exactly the process that I went through to get prints that look like that. So I'm going to go through the process and I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to tell you everything you need, if I can remember everything you need. The basics, I'm going to tell you things that you don't necessarily have to have, that I have, things that I don't have that maybe I will in the future. However, I have proven that I can make platinum prints again. So let me walk you through it. You can still do it the old-fashioned way and do it with film. With an old film camera, you can still do that. There's no reason why you can't. You can use a large format or medium format film camera. Now remember, platinum printing is a contact print, which is what we're going to talk about in a minute. So if you start with a 4x5 or an 8x10 negative on that film, you can save yourself a lot of steps as opposed to a 35mm film. But in this one, I really want to talk about digital. So the first thing you need obviously is a camera. That's my Z8 in order to get the image. Now, I can hear somebody already saying, well, I'll just use my iPhone. Okay. The problem with it is the sensor inside that iPhone might look good on a little JPEG on Instagram or Facebook, but when you want the detail in your image, it's best to have a little bit better camera. Do you have to have a Hasselblad? No. Can you do it with Micro Four Thirds? Probably. You know, you can get a decent image out of that for platinum, I'm sure. Again, because it's a contact print, the size of your negative is going to be the size of your print. So if you're going to be doing really large prints, 30x40, 24x30, whatever, you need big negatives. And if you're using an iPhone, no. If you have a Fuji 100S, of course, you've got a lot more detail in that negative. You can get perfectly good negatives, large negatives, with a full frame camera. Doesn't have to be a Nikon Z8, obviously. Could be a Sony, Canon, Leica, whatever brand you use, Pentax, Olympus, whatever. You can still do it, not a problem. Personally, most of mine are 4x5s, 5x7s, 8x10s. So a full frame camera is far more than adequate. If you're going to do it digitally, you need a computer that can handle it. You need some sort of Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever post-processing program you're going to use. You need that to make your negative. And I'm going to show you right here how I made my negatives. And I used what's called a LUT that I got for free from Bostic and Sullivan. But let me walk you through the process right here. You start with your positive. You're going to have to crop it to whatever size you want. You go to the color lookup and you put that LUT over top that's already designed, I found it's pretty good. I haven't had to adjust it. It works pretty well. You then have to invert your positive to make it into a negative. And then you have to flip it horizontally because the negative is going flat down. It's not, it has to go against the print. Once you have that, you have to have a printer, and preferably a decent printer. And what happens is you make your negative. For people who don't know what film is, this isn't exactly film, but it's close enough. It's a transparency. Some people use a company called Pictorica, which is perfectly fine. I think when I went to order it, they were back ordered or something. So I ended up using this transparency film from a company called Ink Press. It's 8.5 by 11 size, and it'll print you a negative like this. So now you have your negative. Now what do? You have to have a room set up where you can then make your print. What you really have to do is stay out of any sort of room where the sun is coming through. You don't really want any UV light coming through in the area that you're working in because UV exposes your print. I failed to mention in the last video that I did in that you can use the sun to expose your image. The problem with the sun is, like on a day like today, it keeps going behind the clouds. I'm sure you know the sun is in a different position every day. In the winter, it's not going to be as strong as in the summer. And why that matters is because it'd be hard to replicate the exact time. Like let's say you made a print and it took 15 minutes in the sun to expose it properly. And it was a cloudy day. Tomorrow it might be a bright sunny day and you only need 9 minutes, 8 minutes. So it's all over the place. So personally, I don't like using the sun, but you can. So you have your negative. You need paper. I use, at least this particular time, I used Hammermühle Platinum Rag, 8 by 10 sheets. In the past, I used to use Arches Plantain. Some people call it Arches Plantain paper. This time I decided to try the Hammermühle. Hammermühle's been fine. I may stick with it. I may go back to the Arches. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. So the next thing you need after the paper is a pencil. Because what happens is you take your negative, you put it on your paper, and you want to mark the corners. And you mark the corners so that you know where to put your solution on the paper. So you have your paper, you have your negative, you've marked it, you've gone into your room, whether it's your bathroom, maybe you have a dark room, maybe you have a washroom that doesn't have a lot of light that comes through it. You have an area where you can darken it off pretty well. Some people will just turn on a regular light and work that way. What I do is I have a little bit of a darker room and I use a yellow bug light. That's just the way I do it. Then when I put the print in the developer, then I turn a soft light on so I can see it. But when I'm painting on the solution onto the paper, I do it under a yellow bug light. So you need a bug light, or you just need some sort of overhead light. That's probably should be a little muted. Other people might disagree. They'll do it in regular room light. I tend to do it with a yellow light. Then what's the next you need is a shot glass. You need a shot glass because that's how you put your drops in. This is the solution. Typically you have 4, sometimes people use 5 solutions. I get them all from Bostic and Sullivan. I'm guessing 95% of the people that print in platinum palladium get their chemicals and everything they need from Bostic and Sullivan. They've been around for I think 100 years. It's just where people go to buy it. But the 4 solutions you need I mark them A, B, C, D so that I can see them in the light, in the muted light. It's just easier to see. They call them 1, 2, 3, 4. The first one is being ferric oxalate with a little bit of iron oxalate in it. And the B is your ferric oxalate with potassium chloride in it. What this does, it gives you a little bit more contrast in your image. This is how you control your contrast to a large extent with your A and your B. Then your C, some people have C as palladium, some people have it as platinum, but you need platinum and you need palladium. The C and the D, the platinum and the palladium, are optional in that you can print in just platinum or you can print in just palladium. I typically do a mixture. I use mostly platinum, but I do add a couple of drops of palladium in it because it increases your darks, gives you better blacks. The other thing you need, which I would imagine you could get on the internet somewhere, Bostic and Sullivan might even have it, is a chart that's going to tell you how many drops you use. The one thing that you have to be careful of when you use these charts is, like this chart I have, this is for double coating. Not everybody does double coats. A lot of people just do a single coat. So if it says, for example, for a soft negative on a 4x5, you have 12 of A, 11 of platinum, and 1 of palladium, that's for double coats. If you're only going to single coat it, then you'd use 6, and out of that 11 and 1, maybe you do 5 and 1. You have to kind of do the math. And as you increase, you're going to use more drops. That's why when people print 30 by 40s, I don't have the chart in front of me, but man, you're using a whole lot of platinum and palladium, hundreds of dollars. I was watching a video the other night where a guy said that a single drop of palladium now is 50 cents. And if you're printing an 8 by 10 and you want it somewhat, some good blacks, that's 4 drops. So it's $2 just in palladium. And you've got, if you're doing double coating, you might have 40 drops of platinum. So it's an expensive process. It just is. That's why it's rare. A lot of people don't do it. You mix all your solutions to the chart, to how much contrast you want. If you want a soft print, if you want more of a contrast print. This one there is a little bit more of a soft print. I took this image in Iceland. It doesn't have quite as much contrast as maybe this one does. That's the Buddha Kirke, the Black Church in Iceland. So you have to determine that by your mixture. And you may have to print them a few times until you really get your mixture right and your timings. The big advantage of doing digital and doing it in Photoshop is that you can look at your histogram and your negatives are going to have relatively the same density every time. And why that's important is then you can work out your times. Like for example, I know using that transparency film and that paper and the light source that I do use, I print at 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Now it took me 5 or 6 prints before I really dialed it in, and it's taken me a few prints here and there to dial in my brain how many A, B, C, and D drops I want in order to get the look I want. I pretty much have it down in my head now, so I'm not wasting as much as I was when I picked it back up again a few days ago. So you put all your drops in your shot glass, Next thing you need is, the reason it looks like this is because I was in the dark room right before I started making this video. But you need a brush, and you need some distilled water because you want to keep this brush clean. I have found, at least personal experience, spend the extra money and get a good brush. I want to say this was camel hair, but I don't remember exactly. But this is my favorite brush. I've probably had 5 or 6 different brushes over time. This is my favorite one. I keep this one really clean and take good care of it. When you get a bad brush, maybe they use horsehair or something else, and the brush isn't made that well, what happens is sometimes the hair comes off and gets onto your paper while you're mixing the solution. And it gets embedded into the paper and you don't realize it. You go and you expose your print, and now there's a hair in there. It might be tiny, but small, but then you try to remove it, and now you've got a white speck on your print. So get a good brush, and you won't have that problem. So you've brushed it. You've brushed on your solution as such. And now you've got a couple different options. You can just put the prints away somewhere in a dark place and let them dry overnight or dry for a couple hours. Or you can get a hair dryer and just, blow it dry. I've done both. I don't know that there's really that much of a difference between the two, but I have found, I think, maybe if you print while your paper with the solution on it is still just a touch wet, just a little bit. You don't want the negative to stick to the paper, obviously, but just still a little moist, it might help your print a little bit. I can't say for certain, but I have noticed I get just slightly better contrast. So your print's dry. Now what do? You put it in what's called a contact print frame, because contact print means the negative is the size of what your image is going to be. So your contact print frame is what holds it tight while it's being exposed in the sun or whatever light source you're using. This is what keeps it so it doesn't move. So you slide this underneath your light source. You've got your times worked out now, 4 minutes, 45 seconds, or whatever your time is. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 12 minutes. When you're using other people's negatives to print, like let's say you're helping somebody else print, that's the problem. Some negatives are going to be thin, some negatives are going to be more dense, so your print times are always going to be different. Whereas if they're always yours, and you can go into Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever, look at your histogram, be consistent with the products that you use, your time should be pretty close every time. So you've exposed your print. Now what do? You need some trays, and you need developer. Again, I get it from Bostic & Sullivan. This one's potassium oxalate. There is another kind that people use, but I think the majority of people use potassium oxalate. But there are other types. You really need, and of course, obviously you need a tray that's going to be big enough to hold your prints. Again, I'm sort of limited because my contact print frame only goes to 8 by 10. I've been trying to search out a larger contact print. However, then the other problem is that my light source is only 12 by 14. So again, I'm limited to that unless I want to go out and print it in the sun. Then I could have a really large contact print frame and print it in the sun if that's what I wanted to do. Then it gets back to, well, then I need larger trays because it's going to have to fit in the tray. So that's why I sort of limit myself up to maybe 8 by 10. I may go to 11 by 14 and my light source will still handle that, but we'll see. Okay, so you've put it in your solution, your developer, for roughly 2 minutes. I've heard everybody say 1 minute to 4 minutes. I usually do about 2 minutes. You want to flip it And this is what it looks like when you put it in the developer. It exposes almost instantly. And you want to make sure that you either pour your developer over top of it rather quickly or slide it in real fast. That way you get an even print. Now after you do that, then you put it in clearing baths, and you need your EDTA or your tetrasodium, your sodium bisulfite. Don't make me say it again. You need your clearing bath solutions. Again, you can get them from Bostic & Sullivan. Put a couple spoonfuls of each in your clearing baths, and what that does, it removes the excess irons and everything off of your print. Some people do 2 clearing baths, some people do 3. I usually do 2. I usually leave them in each one for about 5 minutes. And then you need to wash your prints for, again, some people say a half hour, some people say an hour. I usually do between 45 minutes and an hour. You need to have them under running water. What I do is I throw them in the shower, and I just let the shower head sit over top of them in a tray, and they just wash out. And then after about an hour, I take them out and they dry. You hang them somewheres and they dry. So that's about it. That's what you need. That's what you're up against. The whole kit, the ABC, this last time, these 3 chemicals, the developer, the 2 clearing bath solutions. I bought them as a kit from Bostic & Sullivan because I needed all fresh chemicals. I want to say it was around $220 for the kit. That's supposed to do single coating up to 25 8x10s. Since I do a lot of 4x5s, 5x7s, I can get 30 to 35 prints. My Hammer Mule paper only came in 25 sheet bag, I think. So I may end up getting more paper. That's how I do it. And hopefully you too can end up with a nice print. I forgot something else you needed. A clock, a little stopwatch or timer of some sort that will time your prints. I know this video is probably not going to get a lot of views, and that's okay. You know, it interested me, so I thought I'd show you how I did it. I had a couple subscribers ask me to walk you through the process, so I thought I'd help them out and give you an idea of what's really involved, and you can decide if you want to try it or not, or you just send it off and have someone make you a print. If you send off, let's say 2 8x10s to have a lab print it, most likely it's going to cost you more than all this combined. It just will. People charge a lot to print in platinum. So you have to decide if it's something you think you want to continue in the future, then just go ahead and invest in the brush and the contact print frame and the trays and things that you'll always use. And then you'll just have to update your solutions now and again. I think they last about 6 months, from what I'm told. Your platinum and palladium might last you a little bit longer than that. But you want to have a bunch of prints lined up ready to make. rather than just making one and then 6 months later going back and making another one, because you're probably going to have to buy fresh solutions again. So therefore it's best, hey, I've got 6 prints, I've got 8 prints ready to go, and just make them all at once. You don't have to make them all the same day, obviously, but within a couple of weeks, within a month, you just print them all out, and then you'll have them. And that'll save you money, and you'll learn something new. But that's up to you. Or you can just, hey, I want one 8x10 made and see how it goes. You send it off. Okay, that's it. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Till next time, take good care. If you don't mind, if you did like it, hit the like button. If you're new here, maybe hit the subscribe button. So till next time, take good care. Bye for now. Oh, I was told I need to smile more. Bye for now.